Welcome to this online discussion session about the ChatGPT. Maybe a word to start with is that you've seen we are recording this session. That's mainly to record the presentations, and we will not. So maybe we will record the discussions, but we will make it into kind of final video. But we will take out the discussions of the final video. So we will not publish the discussions. Feel free to say anything you like in the discussions. It will not be on the web in that way. So it's mainly to record the presentations and maybe some conclusions. Yeah, to start. This is a screen that I see quite often in my family. It's maybe the most often used way of using ChatGPT here in this house to see what we have to eat tonight. And I must say, recently we had a birthday meeting, and it came up with a great buffet, and we made it, and it was appreciated by everybody. So it's really a good source and a new cookbook. Something that I do myself. Going to Crete next week for a couple of days, and it shows you a lot of information that, well, you can find on the internet, of course, but it takes you a lot of digging. So I just go to ChatGPT and give him, I'll ask for some suggestions there. And this is what my 17-year-old son does. So it's open to anything, of course. And well, that's what we're going to talk about today. How to use ChatGPT, what are the experiences with it, what are the possibilities, what are the restraints of using ChatGPT? Is there anything more than having it explain Schrödinger's cat like Shakespeare? To start off with, I will show a couple of slides about DigiShape very briefly, but I've seen some new names on the list, so it's good to at least tell you who we are to organize this. And then we'll jump into it. We have a couple of Mentimeter questions in between. So in the meantime, you might open menti.com on your phone to answer some questions. Just a couple to get the discussion going and to know how you're all into ChatGPT. Then Sanne Pasveer and Ruben will share some of the experience in their organization. And after that, I will open the floor for other people to share some experiences with ChatGPT or generative AI in general, because we talk about ChatGPT, but we can talk about it in a broader sense as well. And after that, we will go into a discussion on the potential use of generative AI in the water sector. What can we do with it? How can it help us? And what do we need for that? So that's roughly what we do in this 1 hour. By the end of the hour, we will open a couple of breakout rooms so that we can also have a chat afterwards and discuss with each other in an informal way. So please be welcome to stay for these drinks without drinks. Yeah, few slides about DigiShape. My name to start off with is Chris Karman. I'm the aanjager, the catalyzer of DigiShape. And DigiShape in the core, in essence, is an open innovation platform. And what we try to do is to bring partners and the community together to innovate and to accelerate digital innovations in the water sector and for the water sector. So we have 17 partners. I will show them on the next slide. They initiate ideas, they initiate projects, but we work closely together with the community, and many of you are not working for one of the partners, so you're part of the community. And we try to involve people to think, but also to cooperate in projects. So it's not closed projects, and whatever we make, whatever we produce within the DigiShape projects, we will share it with the community because we want to strengthen the water sector with digital innovation. So this is the core, and it's kind of a flying wheel. So we put things on it, but if it speeds fast enough, it will go off and live its own life. And we try to generate a lot of projects, a lot of movement in that way. So these are the partners. Companies, small, large, knowledge institutes, education, government, a really nice mix of organizations who have this intrinsic drive to stimulate digital innovation in the water sector. And of course, together with you as a community, as I just mentioned. So it's about 17 partners and about 150 organizations in this community who participate on and off. A couple of slides about the strategy. In the core, we are a network. Maybe not even only a knowledge network, but we are a network of people, of organizations, but mainly of people. Organizations don't work together. People work together. And we have different roles. We provide an area for experimenting. We work on stimulating the sharing of data, but also facilitating the sharing of data to take away thresholds that may be there. We organize challenges, and we challenge partners to come up with their ideas, to accelerate ideas, preferably in an early stage. And we also provide advice, asked or unasked, but we will provide advice to everybody who needs it. And to do so, we are currently developing a data platform. We have regular seed money calls. So we stimulate early phase developments. We have regular DigiShape days. You really invite you to come to one of those DigiShape days if you haven't done that yet. Well, online sessions like these. So we bring the community together to have dialogues, to discuss together, to find where we can have new ideas to work on and maybe to put minds together. And this is one of those dialogue sessions, you could say. So this is all I'm going to say about DigiShape at this moment. Go to our website, digishape.nl, and you'll find anything, also project examples and a lot of news items, interviews, and things like that. But it's not the focus of the discussion today. We're here to discuss about ChatGPT. And now I'm going to show you, here it is already, a Menti slide. I'm inviting you to go to menti.com and put in the code that's in top 65190059. I hope you can read it and answer these 4 questions so that we just have a brief idea of, well, your way of working with ChatGPT, and maybe it helps the speakers, maybe it helps the discussion later on. Answers are already coming in. So it's about whether you use ChatGPT more than once a week, which I would consider a regular user. And are you using ChatGPT for work or business? Is ChatGPT safe to use? And do you think it has a great potential for the water sector? And a low score is disagree, and a high score is that you agree. We have 40 people in the meeting right now, 26 answers. So maybe some of you are still on the way, 28 answers. So if I look at this, that the majority of the people here are regular users of ChatGPT or generative AI, and more than once a week, scores a 6, and also for work business. So it's more for work business than for private use, perhaps. Safe to use, a little bit lower score, so we're not sure about that yet, if it's so safe to use, so maybe something to discuss today. And it has great potential for the water sector, and that scores an 8, so we're really convinced of that. And that's good for today's session. So let's try to identify some actions, what we can do together to bring this further in the water sector. Thanks a lot for this. We'll include it in the final report, so you can read this later on. Yeah, that's my start off, and then I'm asking Sanne and Ruben to share their experiences, and I think Sanne will start explaining how to use ChatGPT as the colleague who's always there for you.
Yeah, I will. I'll share my screen now. My name is Sanne Pasveer. I work for Arcadis. I'll not explain what Arcadis is. You can find that on our website as well. What I will explain is that early this year, in February, I was with Chris in Zeeland at a session about the digitalization of the North Sea. And I was allowed 1 minute, became even less, and I had one question in mind before I went to the session for Minister Harbers, and that was, do you know ChatGPT? So I asked the question, and it was the worst question to ask, because you do not ask a question to a minister that he doesn't have an answer to. But he didn't know ChatGPT, at least not by head at that moment. When I went back to Zwolle from Zeeland, I was in my car listening to the radio, and there was this message that you see on the left side that said that Microsoft was taking a huge investment in OpenAI. And that, of course, changed the world. And I was thinking back of the minister, would he have heard that news today as well? Because this is a game changer, as it says here. Same day, 6th of February this year. And that's not so long ago. And by now, I think everybody knows there's not a day that goes by that there's not a post or whatever, an image shared, a new story shared, new product developed using AI. A lot of them not so good, actually. I will not get into the technology itself. I will show you what I did with it a while ago, not so long ago, when there was a question about seed money for DigiShape. And I was like, okay, what's ChatGPT going to tell me about this? And what I did was I took the answers from ChatGPT that came to my questions, and I put them in PowerPoint. And this is one bit of what happened. I asked the question, which use cases do you think would be relevant in the water sector, and in these use cases would AI be beneficial? And these are the use cases that came up. Well, I'm not sure how many English-speaking people are here, but it's not about the words. It's about the fact that ChatGPT was able to come up with these use cases. And there's this small detail. Microsoft is, of course, investing in AI, but what you see here, these images are not put here by me. It's, of course, done by PowerPoint. PowerPoint has been using AI in a simpler form to put these images here. And it does notice that one use case is about predictability of water sources, of the availability of water sources. That's just the cloud. But when it comes down to threats of floods, it shows, of course, the cloud with the flashlights, the lightning, because it gets a bit scary. That's also AI. So I did nothing to the presentation I'm using now. That's all done by either PowerPoint or ChatGPT. So these were the use cases in a little bit bigger wording, more words used to say the same. And it's created by ChatGPT. So when I had these use cases, I thought, well, okay, what would be the next question? Can you elaborate more about the use of artificial intelligence in these use cases? Because you mentioned use case, quite short. Tell me more. And this is what it does. So I have here a larger explanation of ChatGPT per use case, telling me what to consider in the use case. Again, I will not get into the wording because it's just a colleague providing me answers. And they're equally valuable as the answers provided by a different colleague. We as a group in this session could answer a question, and that's what ChatGPT does as well. But you have to read and read and read what it says and analyze the answer before you do anything with it. So I would never use this for a client, for instance. Not directly. I would use it as some colleague telling me something, and then I'll consider myself what to do with it. So after I got this elaboration on the 5 use cases, I asked which of the 5 use cases is most valuable from an economic standpoint. You can choose any standpoint, of course, viewpoint, economic. And it says, well, the second use case, and it explains why it's the second use case. So the whole presentation took me 2 hours, and by now I'm getting this glimpse of which would be a good use case to use seed money for. I will not enter this one in the competition for seed money, by the way. It's just ChatGPT talking. After I knew which use case was relevant, I asked ChatGPT, okay, thank you. And I'm always being polite, by the way, to ChatGPT. Don't know why. I'm polite with colleagues and with ChatGPT. So I thank him for his answers as well. But I asked him, what would a plan of approach look like for this use case? And it comes up with this plan of approach, and it does look quite solid. Most relevant elements are there. Of course, there will be some things missing, be structured differently, but it does look okay. So I said, okay, we have a plan of approach. Now, can you give me a model? Which model would we use to use data science not use, but to do data science in this use case? And it comes up with a model. I say, thank you again. Here's the model. It comes up with the steps to follow. And then I say, okay, oh, sorry, there's one thing missing. At the bottom, it says the precise design and implementation would depend on the specific circumstances of the location where it will be used. So I say, okay, then use Swallow. I live in Swallow, so just use Swallow. And it does so. And it does change a little bit the wording. It makes it a little more specific. So you think, well, how specific can you be? So I ask, can you give a more detailed description of the model? And it does so. So here is a little more detail, a little more detail. There's pathogen, microorganisms. This is not my field of experience. I would never have written this down. So it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And then there comes this moment where you think, well, nothing really new is coming up. So let's ask the next question. For this model, what would the logical data model look like? But that's the start for deciding which data to collect. So I want to know which logical data model should I use. And this is what it gives me. And I asked for a little more detail. And then I said, well, can you give me a full data model? It does not really visualize it, but this is how far it gets. And this is enough. So this is quite a nice result after not even 2 hours, because I said in total, I spent 2 hours on this exercise. That includes creating the PowerPoint. So this is what it comes up with. This is the full data model. And it might not be complete, but it does give you a sense of direction on how much work would this be? How much of this would I already have? Where would I collect the data necessary? I can use this as a colleague that's instantly available, of course. That's really handy. And then something struck me. He explains in his explanation of the model time series forecasting. Again, I never use time series forecasting, but I thought, well, if it does talk about time series forecasting to be used in creating the model, then why not ask for the code to create? Can you write the code that should be used in time series forecasting? And it does so. So by origin, I'm more an IT person than, of course, a water person. But what I can do is I can understand that you need to know how many elements your solution consists of to decide what the pricing of what you do should be and how much time it will take and what risks of the projects are. And this in 2 hours gives me much more sense of what the scope of the project would be than not knowing this. And it would take, of course, much more time to ask colleagues about this. So going back to the root of this session, it's not about ChatGPT being good or bad. It's about can it help speed up thinking of solutions that make the water problems that we're facing less. And do we need to speed up? Definitely. So we can embrace this, and in which way is to be discovered. That's all I have to say for now.
Thanks, Sanne. A great example.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Ruben Daam. I am hydrologist by training, but I'm also working on hydrology and flood risk at Deltaris. But I'm also one of the who leads one of our research programs enabling technologies that focus cloud computing, hybrid modeling, and also who started with the experiment on generative artificial intelligence. So what we want to share today is in essence where Sanne left us. So Sanne, from a previous presentation, said this could be a 24/7 available coworker. And then we said, okay, what would it mean if we have those available to our company? So we want to explore the impact of generative and conversational AI models for Deltaris. And while the experiment is still ongoing, I want to share some of the slides and the things that we did. So because, of course, when it was just released in autumn last year, all these major headlines were made by The Economist, Harvard, Nature, Science, and also a lot of newspapers in the Netherlands. We're talking about the rise of AI labs and on ChatGPT. So what we are doing, I should say, is in January, we organized a hackathon with 10 colleagues for a full morning on what would it be if we would have this over the full width of Deltaris available and we would use it. So this involved people from the communication department because ChatGPT can write great tweets, for instance, or blogs. Also from our software department, co-developing of code in our kernels, scripting when we have a project and we use Python for script development, report writing. So the results of that first morning were that we said, okay, this could have huge potential, but also could be very disruptive, and we need to understand better what it would mean to have an AI coworker at Deltaris. So we organized a meeting with our management, and we got a green light to organize a full-scale experiment with quite some colleagues within our company. So we called it like we should learn by doing. And we're currently halfway through that experiment, where we, with among around 70 to 80 colleagues, are exploring what it actually means to have an AI coworker on our day-to-day business. And a little bit focusing on the OpenAI, what they said, Sam Altman, so the CEO of OpenAI, he said he's really looking towards that it will be application layer built on top of massive language models. So ChatGPT could in essence, or OpenAI could in essence offer a base layer where a whole range of startups and new businesses could pop up. You can then think along with the line of GitHub Copilot. Maybe some of you know it. They used the base layer of an LLM, so large language model, and they retrained it on code. And now you have an AI supporting you when you are developing, for instance, Python scripts in Git. We also thought the co-working or the automation will affect really already highly digitalized jobs, in essence, our work. And it's way broader than ChatGPT. On NLP, so the natural language processing, many initiatives are already started. So Google Bard, GitHub Copilot. There's an open science initiative called Bloom. There, if you look towards the creation of images, you have Midjourney, DALL-E, but also Dream Studio. But those were a single model to put it like that, large language models. And now with ChatGPT 4, but also with the efforts of Microsoft and Google, we are moving towards the multimodal, where you have images, text, sound probably also as well. So we noticed that colleagues were already experimenting with these tools. While some organizations, they decided their position really early on. So some universities said, this is fraud, you cannot use it towards the students. Some marketing companies said, this is magnificent for our creative process, embrace. So what would it mean for a research institute as Deltares? So we wanted to explore the implications and also give, if possible, give clarity to our colleagues, our partners in our projects, but also to our clients. So is some of the work co-written or co-designed with an AI supporting tool? So I want to take you along with like what we actually did. So we organized this one-day hackathon, and briefly after that we organized a Deltares-wide informative session. So for those of you who have been to Deltares, we have this meeting room, and it was an open session with colleagues to explore, like, are you already using it, or and if so, how? What are your experience or expectations? And we used the input to design an experiment. Learning by doing, and then some of the actions and roadmap I will share with you. So we designed an internal experiment on the use of generative AI tools, where we focus on applying it and integrating it in the daily work. Not a one-off group of a couple of colleagues who had a day to spend on it, but actually like, hey, you have a project, what would it mean to this project? We deployed it in an action learning way. We organized the kickoff, and we have bi-weekly feedback loops. So the whole group, for certain parts of the experiment, they come together, online sessions, and we ask them, what did they learn? How did it work for them? Any tips or tricks on prompt engineering, for instance. And we designed multiple streams. In total, it takes 2 to 3 months, and then we with all the colleagues, we have closing sessions where we're involved, and we report back to our management on how to deal with these techniques, because they can be very disruptive, but also how are you going to implement it in daily work, etc. For the 4 streams we designed, we're focusing on scripting or software development, on writing, where we focus on reports, on proposals, but also on communication. And of course, the legal part. So what do's and don'ts should we offer to our internal colleagues, but also what is any of these legal questions that of course are still there, how should this be addressed? And then the wider internal Deltares community, because of course the colleagues involved in the experiment are less than 10% of the company, while it affects the whole company. So a little bit of the roadmap. We started in April, a little bit better. We had that guidelines. We developed some guidelines, learning by doing. What are do's, what are don'ts? We had a kickoff session for the different teams. And every once in a while, we have these feedback sessions, primarily focused on the scripting and writing groups, on what did they learn and how did it evolve. And it feeds back into like what is our position on or what could be our position from a legal perspective. So by late June or July, we will harvest all this information and get some key lessons for our own company, like specifically targeted towards Deltares as a research institute from this learning by doing stuff. And then we update both our colleagues who weren't part of the experiment, but also this, like, what type of decisions, are there any decisions to be made on how to move forward? This is more or less what I already shared. And in essence, this is what we are doing at Deltares, sharing it with you, and then ideas or thoughts, queries or suggestions, of course, are really welcome, because it could be really powerful. But also we think we need to find ways on how to actually deploy this in projects. Any questions or things that you want to discuss, so you can either drop me a message, or Antonio, with the key partner who we developed this experiment with.